good to go. Y'all know what? Make sure y'all share it.
The Lord, my shepherd, and I'm born, lay down to lie. In paths green, that leadeth me, the quiet waters by. My soul, oh, hunger is for again, and need to walk of faith. Within the house of righteousness, he's been for his name's sake. Yeah, no, I walk in this darkness. It will I ever be. Thy rock and star, they are with me. They surely comfort me. My Savior, no hospital, in the presence of my foes. My head goes up along this point, my cup is overflows. Goodness and mercy all my life shall surely follow me. And in Jehovah's right home, my dwelling place must be. Goodness and mercy all my life shall surely follow me. And in Jehovah's goodness and mercy all my life shall surely follow me. And in Jehovah's heart I know my dwelling place must be. My soul know how to restore again.
Everybody ready?
To walk those days.
Everybody ready?
Within the path of life, justness, even for his name's sake. Here do I walk in this darkness, yet will I follow him.
Shabbat shalom, family.
Shabbat shalom.
Let's try it again. Shabbat shalom, family.
Shabbat shalom.
That's right. Shabbat shalom to everybody on the live feed. Thank y'all for tuning in for another Shabbat study with Echad Malkut Ministries. Today, on this Shabbat study, we have a special lesson. Definitely brought out by some special brothers. To my right, we got
Elder Lau.
and then to my left, we got
Yaakov.
All right, so they got a powerful lesson brought out, and so we appreciate everybody tuning in. Please make sure you share it. Please make sure you comment, make sure you like, and continue to support the ministry as y'all all been. We definitely appreciate y'all support, and we definitely appreciate all the blessings and prayers that's been sent up throughout this time that we've been a Echad Malkut Ministry. So without further ado, before we get into the lesson, let's all rise up. Face the east, face Jerusalem. Pray to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Echad. 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 come before your throne as your sons, your daughters, and your servants. Praying in the mighty name of Yahushua HaMashiach, our King and our Master, our Chief Shepherd. In his name, Father, we sing a song to you. Yabarika Yahweh, Be'ishamerika, Yahweh, Yahweh, Boniyah, ehkadmalkutministries, Yesai, Yahweh, Boniyah, Echad, may I sing Shalom. May I sing Shalom. Yabarika Yahweh, Be'ishamerika, Yahweh, Yahweh, Boniyah, ehkadmalkutministries, Yesai, Yahweh, Boniyah, Echad, may I sing Shalom. May I sing Shalom. Yabarika Yahweh, Be'ishamerika, Yahweh, Yahweh, Boniyah, ehkadmalkutministries, Yesai, Yahweh, Boniyah, Echad, may I sing Shalom. May I sing Shalom. Amen. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. So I will be coming for your throne today. Blessed Baruch Hashem Yahweh, the Almighty El Shaddai, Yaziba'oth. Father, with your mighty hands, your powerful voice, Yahweh, may you always put upon us your healing, your mercy, and your grace. Father, we say Todah Rabbah, Father, for constantly showing us who we are so that we can fix the problem within ourselves, Father. Thank you, Father, for constantly giving us the breath to breathe, giving us eyes to see and ears to hear, Father, giving us the voice to speak your oracles, Father. Thank you, Father, for choosing us out of a dark place, Father, that we may truly see the light, and that we may accept the light and sup with the light, that we can be the light to all nations, Father. Thank you for your mercy, Father. Thank you for the love that you've given us that no man on this earth can give us, Father. Showing us how to truly love with our heart, minds, and souls, Father. It is our prayer that we can have a heart like such to each other, Father. Yeah. So continue to purge us, Father, not with just the natural remedies, but the spiritual things, Father. Let us understand you as you have seen fit for us to understand you, Father. Let us see you for who you really are, Father, but let us see it with a humble eye, Father, a humble heart, Father. Let us see and be revealed all truth in spirit. May the Ruach HaKodesh dwell upon all of us in our households, especially in this dark time, Father. When the enemy is trying to sift out the weak, when the enemy is trying to devour the bold, when the enemy is trying to find each and every way to infiltrate your house. But we know that your house will build upon a rock and not sand, Father. So let us stand boldly before everybody and anybody who's trying to stand against this truth. Let us put all disobedience to obedience, Father, right now. Let your word stand true in every man alive. Let us hear your voice as you see fit, Father. Let us not be ignorant to no man. Let us not meditate on what to say, but let the Ruach HaKodesh move our mouth to speak, Father. Let your words reside in our heart. Let the covenant be a remembrance, Father, what you made with our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Let us see the new covenant for what it is, Father, that we have a Hamashiach now as our high priest and our king, Father. Hallelujah. Father, we just continue to pray against the demonic nation who has spilled the blood of the saints, Father.
Hallelujah.
We speak against all those, Father, who laugh at the calamities of your children, Father.
Hallelujah.
Use our hands. Teach us to war, Father. But before our hands, use our minds and our spirits so that we may war in the spiritual realm first and it manifests in the physical, Father. Let every royal bloodline family that has had a part in our destruction, let them be put down, Father, right now. Use us as your battle axe against every government. Use us as your battle axe against every demonic spirit, every strong man over every family that's against us, Father, right now. But first of all, teach us how to repent first, Father.
Hallelujah.
How can we truly war with the enemy when we don't even know how to war with our flesh? Give us the tools, Father. Give us the necessary words to rebuke our flesh, to rebuke these spirits who try to fight us, Father, who tries to seduce us, Father. We speak against all manner of darkness right now.
Yes.
All manner. Use us as your battle axe, Father, right now. Let us bind up every strong man right now who goes against your kingdom. Hallelujah. Use us, Father, in whatever way you see fit. Let your kingdom come and let your will be done right now, as in heaven, so on earth. Let the children of light rise up right now, Father. Let not darkness take over or consume us anymore, Father. Let us be that house on the hill that shines bright, Father. Let us not battle with the flesh, Father, but teach us how to be a quickening spirit. So let us elevate in all areas of our life and fasting and praying and words going against the enemy. For we declare on this day that Hashatan has no authority over us right now, Father. He has no authority over our mind. He has no authority over our hearts or our spirits. He has no authority over our flesh because we choose to die daily for you. It is our reasonable service, Father. So I pray that our prayer is accepted as a sweet incense upon your altar, Father. I pray that we come to you with a pure heart and not a corruptible one, Father. I pray that we come to you in humbleness and not with pride or any ought against our brother, Father. For you told us we have any ought, Father, that we couldn't even give you a gift. So let us reconcile with all men, Father, that we have had an ought or even hate towards, Father. So let us continue to honor the King with our works. But let us show you our faith by our works, Father, right now. In the mighty name of Yahushua, HaMashiach, the anointed King of the world, the anointed King of Israel, the Master, the Creator of all things, Father. By His blood and His name do we pray. Avinu.
Avinu.
Shabbat Shemayim.
Shabbat Shemayim.
Echad.
Echad.
Shimka.
Shimka.
Tabo.
Tabo.
Makuteka.
Makuteka.
Yaseh.
Yaseh.
Rizoka.
Rizoka.
Shabbat Shemayim.
Shabbat Shemayim.
Dama Aretz.
Dama Aretz.
Teilanu.
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 Elekum.
Elekum.
Zorkenu.
Zorkenu.
Hayom.
Hayom.
Umaka.
Umaka.
Ledu Et.
Ledu Et.
Pomutenu.
Pomutenu.
Kemoshika.
Moshika.
Anaktu.
Anaktu.
Mukamu.
Mukamu.
Lekievien.
Lekievien.
Watevien.
Watevien.
Ledemisiyo.
Ledemisiyo.
Allah.
Allah.
Atilenu.
Atilenu.
Bira.
Bira.
Kishoka.
Kishoka.
Malkut.
Malkut.
Wakabura.
Wakabura.
Watafira.
Watafira.
Leomei.
Leomei.
Olami.
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 Rukashim.
Rukashim.
Yahweh.
Yahweh.
El Elyon.
El Elyon.
El Shaddai.
El Shaddai.
Zibaot.
Zibaot.
Ba'ashem.
Ba'ashem.
Wabada.
Ba'adam.
Yahushua.
Yahushua.
Hamashiach.
Hamashiach.
Our King.
Our King.
Our Master.
Our Master.
Our Chief Shepherd.
Our Chief Shepherd.
By His blood.
By His blood.
We are saved.
We are saved.
By His blood.
By His blood.
We are protected.
We are protected.
By His blood.
by his blood.
We have power.
We have power.
Hallelujah.
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 Yo, hey, what? Hey.
Glory, glory.
Yo, hey, what? Hey.
Glory,
Yo, hey, what? Hey.
glory.
It is so.
It is so.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. That's that fire right there. Hallelujah, saints.
Hallelujah.
It is an honor to be before you this day. It is an honor to be in a position to feed God's people, to be in a position to share what the Most High has shared with us, to share with His family. Today, I just want to be an instrument. I just want to be used by Him, and whatever He gives me, I want to share with His people, and I don't want to withhold. It's my first time doing something like this live, so hi everybody. Today, try not to be too lengthy, but it is a lot to cover. So we'll, basically, if anyone has any questions, I'll just ask you, write them down and hold them to kind of get through it, so that we can, just all learn together. I like to do things. I like to do things kind of different. I like participation, in with lessons like this, so we can all, I believe what they say, the rising tide raises all ships, so we all learn together, we all eat together. Whatever the Most High gives us, He gives us together. So I may be calling on just a few people just to, read a verse here, so, be ready. But today's lesson is called Assets versus Liabilities. And what we're going to be doing is just exploring the life of Abraham, Father Abraham, and exploring the life of Lot. And when we look at the Torah and we look at the prophets, basically from the Torah to the prophets and the stories that we see in the book, it's explaining how we are reacting to either being obedient or disobedient, to being faithful or being unfaithful. And we're constantly seeing what's the results of obedience, what's the results of being faithful, or what's the consequences of being disobedient, what's the consequences of being unfaithful. So we constantly in life deal with that balance between, every situation that we run into in life. It's a matter of, okay, am I going to be obedient in this situation and be faithful, or am I going to fold and be disobedient and go my own way? So in these times, these are basically these times that are going to test us. So we're definitely just going to delve into that and, and attempt to make this relatable to what's going on today. Okay, so we're going to be in the book of Genesis. So let's all turn to the book of Genesis, chapter 11. And can I get a can when everybody has made it?
Okay.
All right. Code.
All right, this is the book of Genesis, chapter 11, verse 1. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go to let us to make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto the heaven. And let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they began to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth. And from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of the whole earth.
Okay. So what we see here is this is after the flood, when basically the earth began to repopulate itself, and people began to basically just dwell, just get back to what they would consider to be their norm. So you had people who took heed to what Noah was faithful, but then you had people who basically went the other way and looked at what the Most High did for destroying the earth and said, well, this will never happen to us again. So in them trying to get together, where it says here, where they were of one language and one mind, they all thought alike. They all, basically, all was on one accord in their wickedness, basically shaking their fist at the Most High, saying that, if he floods the earth, we're going to build his tower to, basically just be over the waters this time. He's not going to destroy mankind anymore. So when you look at this, you see like this one government of people. So when the Most High saw what was going on, it was like, well, wait a minute, there's nothing that's going to stop these people from doing whatever that is in their wicked hearts to do. So I have to come down there and confound them. So when you look at what's going on in Babel, Babel is basically the epicenter of all religions and all thought process, or I would say, thought process that's outside of the Most High. Where basically, what pretty much what we're going through today, as far as how they were naming certain celestial bodies is after days, and serving certain deities and things of that nature. And when those were confounded, it pretty much broke people into different. It pretty much scattered that government. And since then, they've never been one. As much as people would like to believe that, it's going to be a one world government and all this, they've been, going on around us, and you know, a lot of us, you know, I don't think there's anybody in here that was born in the '60s. Whether or raise your hand, but you know, a lot of us were born in the '70s, '80s, some in the '90s, and so on. Like this, you know, the world that we came into was highly wicked. It was very wicked. And when you think about our family structure, a lot of our family was basically just integrated with this wicked society. It was integrated with basically keeping the customs of the people. Celebrating Christmas was a big thing in, you know, my house. You know, Thanksgiving, Easter, like all those things that a lot of us didn't even know where these things came from. You know, we were born into this, so this was normal to us. You know, some of our families had it worse than others. So when we look at, you know, when we look at Father Abraham, you know, he came into this world no different than any one of us. You know, he came into this world when they were, you know, when basically things were just all off course and scattered, and people were, you know, worshiping all kind of deities and things like that. Now, the thing about him, our father, is he has a nephew named Lot. And unfortunately, you know, Lot fathers die, so, you know, he does the right thing, taking Lot up under his wing, basically raising him as his own son, because you got to realize that Abraham didn't have a son for a long time. You know, so Lot was pretty much like a son to Abraham. You know, that basically was his son. You know, I don't know if there's any uncles in here, but, you know, you have nephews that maybe the fathers may not be around or what have you. So you take them under your wing and you try to be the best, male role model that they can be, pretty much like a father to him. So Lot was pretty much like Abraham's first son, because at the time Sarah was barren. So does anybody in here know what an allegory is? Anyone know what the definition of allegory is? All right. Well, what an allegory is it's a story, poem, or picture that can be interpreted to be reveal a hidden meaning. Typically like a moral or political one, an expression that's by means something symbolic, a fictional figure or actions of truth or generalizations of the human experience. So an allegory could basically be like a story that's unfolding. So in this story, who's the author? Most High. So he's writing this out. So I'm trying to build this picture of, we see this world that, we see this corrupt world, and then we see this man coming into this world, which he did exist. Abraham was real as you and I here. And he came into the same circumstances and was born in the same circumstances that all of us were born into. Okay? And, but when we talk about the allegory, someone has to make this story. Who's writing our story? Okay. All right. So we're going to go to Genesis, this next chapter in Genesis. Genesis 11. Genesis 12. Sorry. Starting at verse 1. 1 through 5.
All right, this is the book of Genesis, chapter 12, starting at verse 1. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, get thee out of the country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. And Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran. And they went forth to go into the land of Canaan, and into the land of Canaan they came.
So in here, you see Abraham was 75 years old when he got called out. He was old, well, in our age, based on how we live, he was considered an old man at 75. So he had 75 years on this earth doing all the customs, going on, basically keeping all of the so-called holidays. And I'm just think about us now. Think about living your life, 75 years of your life, not missing the Christmas, not missing the Easter. Basically, if you had like a service or a Sunday service or whatever, going to church faithfully, just living your life. And then at 70, 75 years old, being called out. Because that's what it was, being called out, being called to the truth, being called to follow. And what Abraham did without hesitation is he obeyed. Yeah. And this was a sacrifice for him. I don't think there's no one sitting here or no one, listening right now that hasn't given up anything or hasn't left their family behind this life. We've all given up something. We've all sacrificed something. So let's go down to verse 10 through 16. So this is the part what I call this is the part what we call the investment. Since we're talking about assets and we're talking about liabilities. So Abraham made an investment in trusting the Most High. That's an investment. Basically it's like if somebody come up to me and say, hey, I got a great idea. I just need $100 or $1,000 from you to get started. And either that investment is going to pay off or it basically is just going to get taken out of your money. But Abraham made an investment in basically packing up from what he knew for 75 years of his life to follow the Most High. So let's go down to verse 10 through 16.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 12, starting at verse 10. And there was a famine in the land. And Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. And it came to pass, when he was come near to enter into Egypt, that he said unto Sarai his wife, Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me. But they will save thee alive. Say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee. And it came to pass that when Abram was come into Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman, that she was very fair. The princes also of Pharaoh saw her, and commended her before Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house, and he entreated Abram well for her sake. And he had sheep and oxen, and he asses, and manservants and maidservants, and she asses and camels.
So when they say Sarah was fair, I'm just going to replace fair with fine. In today's terms. So here it is. Like this is the investment. This is when, basically it's like, Most High, you brought me out here. I still have my wife. I know she's barren, but she's still my wife and everything. And now we're going through this land. And this is where Abraham gets to see that the Most High isn't going to basically embarrass him. Like Abraham's investment is going to pay off. Because as we see, he's already, gotten substance, but according to him, he doesn't really see the whole plan. It's just, okay, this man gave me all this stuff for my wife. Like, what do I do now? He's called me out of my, he's called me away from my family, away from everything that I know, and just, my comfort zone, just for me to lose my wife. And, and And that's, his wife is priceless. So basically, it's like, even though he's given all his substance, it's like, well, I'm still losing my wife. Like, what's going on with that? And there's a little doubt here with him, like, well, a little fear for his life behind this, because again, he just came out. He's still kind of dealing with those doubts, those thoughts, I'm seeing how the world works, so I know how it is. If I'm out here, they're gonna say something, where's my protection? So we just gotta play the game right now. Sometimes a lot of us get into that mode. It was like, let's just play the game. But, here's where the Most High comes through for him. You read 17 through 19.
This is Genesis chapter 12, verse 17. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, What is this that thou hast done unto me? Why didst thou not tell me that she was thy wife? Why sayest thou, she is my sister? So I might have taken her to me to wife. Now therefore, behold thy wife, and take her and go thy way. And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away, and his wife, and all that they had.
So that's the Most High coming through for you and offering his protection. And this is what being faithful, this is basically where I believe Abraham really understood that the Most High was there for him in protecting him. Because through him being faithful to the Most High and being obedient, nothing was suffered to happen to his wife. Like when we look at Deuteronomy 28:30, where it says, Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build a house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shall not gather the grapes thereof. And that's due to being disobedient. So from being obedient, the opposite happened. His wife was actually protected through his obedience. So now we're starting to see where, okay, this I'm becoming an asset. This is starting to pay off. Now I'm beginning to, now my investment in following the Most High when he speaks is starting to be beneficial. So now we're going to see the flip side of this. Now we're going to see the flip side. So let's go to chapter 13. Starting at 1.
It's the book of Genesis, chapter 13, starting at verse 1.
And I call this the liability. This is where the liability starts.
And Abram went up out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him into the south. And Abram was very rich in cattle, and in silver, and in gold. And he went unto his journeys from the south, even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Hai, onto the place of the altar, which he had made there at the first. And there Abram called on the name of the Most High.
So we see here, Abram didn't just get his substance and stop serving. He kept pressing. Some people, they win they get their little blessing and then they forget about the Most High. Because now they're comfortable. Now they're back in their comfort zone. Some of us, we get a decent job, we struggling and, we fasting and praying that the Most High come through, and then he come through and we forget about it. The Most High came through for Abram, and he kept pressing. He didn't stop. He didn't let up off the gas. He continued to seek the Most High. Verse 5.
Verse 5. And Lot also, which went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents, and the land was not able to bear them.
Hold on. Okay, so verse 5. So right here you see wherever Abraham went, Lot was right there with him. So Lot saw exactly what Abraham was going through. It wasn't like Lot was somewhere else when all this stuff was going down. And again, Lot was like a son to Abraham. Because, you know, when it was time for them to go, Lot followed. So everything that Abraham knew, Abraham was teaching Lot, like a father would do a son. He was teaching, you know, basically teaching them to trade, teaching them how to raise cattle, teaching them how to basically just have his own, like you would do your son. So Lot basically had possession with Abraham. The only difference is they had two different mentalities about it. And this is where the liability comes in. This is where we begin to either our mindset goes from being an asset to the Most High, or we become like a straight up liability. And it just doesn't stop with us.
Verse 6.
So yeah, verse 6 through 8.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 13, starting in verse 6. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together. And there was a strife between the herdmen of Abram's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle. And the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelled then in the land. And Abram said unto Lot, let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we be brethren. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. And Lot lifted up his...
I'm sorry. Okay, so right here where you see, 6 through 8, where he says, we understand that we're either going to be on one accord, or we're going to we have to separate. Mm-hmm. And the reason being is because the light and darkness cannot mix. So even in here, the Most High does the separation, not us. Eventually, if there's not a one accordness, he will move that. Something will happen. Friction will be there. Sooner or later, that separation is going to happen. And this is what you see, basically, them clashing together, because if they were of one mind, they would both be there to seek peace. But when you look at where they are, they're between, they're basically dwelling amongst Canaanites and Perizzites. Men, basically people with worldly mindsets. They have their own agendas.
I think the beauty in this is you see how respectable Abraham was, that he let those around him eat, but at the same time the whole retrospect of it was he wanted to just keep his peace.
Right.
And that I would say the liability in it, a lot is he didn't realize how much riches he had beyond the materialistic thing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's good.
Yeah. And that's what it is. Like, Abraham was like, okay, so you take the right, I'll take the left, or whichever one you want, just to keep the peace. Mm-hmm. Abraham's mind was, I've already seen the Most High come through for me. So wherever I go, he's going to be there with me. Mm. Look at where Lot's at. Go ahead.
This is Genesis 13 at verse 10.
Stop at 13. Go ahead. Verse 13. Or no, you're at verse 10. You're at verse 10? Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's what you want me to pick up?
Yeah, pick up at verse 10.
Okay. Verse 10. And Lot lifted up his eyes, and behold, all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zoar.
Okay, so right here. Now, when Abraham left the land, who told him to leave?
Most High.
Now, when Lot basically is picking his land, who's telling him to pick and who's telling him where to go?
Abram.
He's making the decision. Lot made the decision. And he made the decision based on what he saw. Go ahead.
Verse 11. Then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves, the one from the other. Abram dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tents toward Sodom. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly.
So look at it like this, right? I know some of us in times past was like, if I hit the lottery, I'm probably gonna buy this big house in Beverly Hills. I'm probably gonna buy this house in some city that looks, flashy or whatever. I'm gonna buy a penthouse in New York, in Brooklyn, or Manhattan. So I'm gonna just live large. But when you think about where you're moving to, in most cases, are these people righteous or are these people wicked? Are we trying to dwell amongst the righteous or are we trying to dwell amongst the wicked? So we already see there's two different mindsets at work here. The mindset that wants to be flashy, the mindset that basically, cares about the things of the world because, again, Sodom was a city. It was a city, but we're going to get into the politics of Sodom. Because Sodom was, basically, even though it was an ancient city, it was pretty much modern for that era. Okay? Go ahead.
And then really think about it. The snare that Lot fell into. He wanted the best. He wanted the land that looked the best watered, whatever. So selfishly, he a sidekick. You know what I mean? He basically just rolled in on his uncle's blessings. Right. And he ain't even humble enough to make sure the one who made sure he's thriving and he's growing gets the best.
Right.
And so that was the lure. That was the attraction for him to look by the there's a scripture says in John, the lust of the eyes.
Right.
He's looking for what's best, and that kind of goes with what you're saying. That he's attracted to the way things look, and it ends up ensnaring him.
Right.
Okay? Based on the looks. Where if his heart was really right, he should seem like he would want his uncle to have the best.
Right.
Okay?
And this is what we see here in Proverbs 16:9. It says, a man's heart deviseth his ways, but the Lord directs his steps. And, what we see here, yeah, you're right. He would want his uncle to have the best, the man that looked out for him.
Right.
So you know what, that land over there looks great, why don't you have it?
Right.
But instead it's like, nah, I want to be flashy. I want to, basically I want to have the best of the best.
Right.
And not pay the cost to get it. So after that, verse 14 and 15.
I was going
to go ahead.
I think that in these last days, there's probably going to be a lot of that going on. I think that there's going to be a lot of non-believers that are going to see the protection that the Most High gives those that believe, and then try to jump on the train. Right. And this story here of Lot and Abram kind of reminds me of, what I think we're going to see more of in this time.
That's right.
All right, we're at verse 14.
14 and 15.
Okay. This is Genesis chapter 13, starting in verse 14. And the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, lift up now thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art northward and southward, and eastward and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered.
You see, after Lot left, what happened? The Most High continued to bless Abraham. And he said, look, basically, it wouldn't matter where Abraham would have went. The Most High is with him. And this is what being faithful gets us, even in these times. This is what, this is basically the benefit of believing the Most High. You get his protection. basically you get blessed everywhere your feet go. But he's directing your steps. Like even in that, he knew what was in Lot's heart. So he didn't cause Abraham to go into Sodom. He knew what was in Lot's heart. So Lot picked to go over there. You're going to see where, you're going to see basically where that decision comes from. And again, when we talk about allegories, we also got to talk about the author and finisher of our faith, which is extremely important. Because based on what's in our mind, we think we're making these decisions and we're, okay, we'll pick A, pick B. Based on where our mind is at, we're going to pick that thing that's going to constantly cause us to mess our lives up if our minds aren't right. But if our minds are right with the Most High, we're constantly going to be directed by His steps. And we're going to continue to see that. So let's go to 14.
I think we're 16.
No, we'll just write it out. So go to chapter 14.
Gotcha.
So Genesis chapter 14.
All right, it's the book of Genesis, chapter 14, starting at verse 1.
And we're just with this one, we're going 2 through 12. 1 through 12. It's just a lot to read, so I'm trying to get through it. But this is basically where we see where Lot is not safe in his decision. And this is basically where now, we were talking about earlier, where basically the decisions that we make, we really got to be careful about. Amen.
All right, this is the book of Genesis, chapter 14, starting at verse 1. And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arach, king of Elasar, Shadar Lamer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations, that these made war with Barah, king of Sodom, and with Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, and Shimbar, king of Zeobim, and the king of Bela, which was Zoar. All these were joined together in the vale of Siddim.
Okay. So right now, like you look at again, if we were parallel what was going on here, parallel what's going on today. Now you see that the Most High already basically, when he confused the languages, he literally divided nations. So all these kings that basically came up, they have their own way of doing things. So you have this confederacy over here, and you got this confederacy over here, basically clashing and bumping heads right now. Kind of like the way the world's set up today, right? And where are we? We're in the midst of all this stuff. Now the problem is some of our people are going to get caught up in this thinking that they got to pick a side.
Example, Black Lives Matter.
And we got to pick a side. Because you're going to see the difference between what's going on with Lot and what's going on with Abraham. And one thing I wanted to point out with these different kings is basically just the meaning of their names. So the first one, Amraphel, slayer of darkness. Arinah, lion-like. Basically, he was the ancient king of Elazar, allied to Shadamor. And he's a chief executioner of Nebuchadnezzar. So Chalamor, his name means handful of sheaves. So, it was Tidal, his great son, Barah, king of Sodom. Barah was the king of Sodom. His name literally means son of evil. So literally that makes sense. Yeah. But that's where Lot is. Lot is under his rulership because Lot wants to be in Sodom. So he's under the rulership of Barah, the king of Sodom, son of evil. And Bereshia, the king of Gomorrah. That name means with iniquity. So Nab, splendor of the father, and Shimbar, if I pronounced that right. It means lofty flight. when we look at these kingdoms, we can look at these nations today, and we can say, okay, well, maybe I may not want to dwell in America. Maybe I just might want to, go travel somewhere else and go live somewhere else. And we think, okay, well, maybe their system is just a little bit better. Maybe their system is just a little bit better. When you look at all these kings, and you look at these kings like, let's just say they're the world. Because back then, they were the world.
Okay.
But these kings are literally clashing right now. Now we're in the middle of all this stuff. We're here, but basically we're in the middle of that clash. Go ahead.
Verse 4. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled.
So basically, it was like, whatever democracy or whatever crap you pulling, we're not going for it. You're taxing us too much, or we're just getting upset. Basically, again, going back to the Tower of Babel, when he confused the languages, he confused the people. And he basically, at that point, you can't come together. It's impossible. It's impossible. Basically, darkness is constantly going to stay in confusion with each other, and they're never going to agree on each other. They're never going to agree with each other. Go ahead.
Verse 5. And in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him, and smote the Rephaims and Ashtaroth, Carneim, and the Zuzims in Ham, and the Emims in Shaphah Karatha, and the Horites in their Mount Seir unto El Paran, which is by the wilderness. And they returned and came to En Mishpat, which is Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites that dwelt in Hazazon Tamar. And there went out the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela. The same is Zoar. And they joined battle with them in the vale of Siddim, with Chedorlaomer, the king of Elam, and with Tidal, king of nations, and Amphrael, king of Shinar, and Erok, king of Elasar, 4 kings with 5. And the vale of Siddim was full of sling pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell there, and they that remained fled to the mountain. And they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their vitals and went their way.
Just verse 12.
And they took Lot, Abraham's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed.
So all this stuff is going on, right? So there's a period of time where wherever Lot was, he knew that these people were wicked. He knew what Abraham stood for, because he's been with Abraham his whole life. So with him dwelling amongst these people, he knew, pretty much that basically they were just wicked. So we see like this war going on, and we see that one side is literally besting the other side, and the other side that's losing is the side that Lot is dwelling in. So basically, you see here where Lot, along with all the stuff that Lot had, got taken because of where he was dwelling. But you don't hear nothing about what's going on with Abraham. Why is that? You got all these nations going to war, but where's Abraham? Where's he at?
Maybe in Revelation, they say, "They come out of my people and be not partake of their iniquities." I think that's a good example, like being in the midst of what the spiritually, physically, being in the midst of evil. You could even be a partaker of that judgment.
Right. That's right. It's like us. Let's say we decided to go out and ride, and they start shooting rubber bullets. If you get hit with one, you're a partaker of that punishment. Yeah. You partaking with it. It is what it is. So let's go down to start at verse 14 through 16.
All right, it's the book of Genesis, chapter 14, starting at verse 14. And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants, born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan.
Okay, so
Abraham was a king.
he was a
I
king,
think he was just a shepherd. No, that man was a king.
and he was unbothered by this war.
Till his uncle got him, till his cousin, his nephew got him.
Yeah, and then that's what pulled him in it. But outside of that, if his nephew was never in it, he was in peace. There's no need for him to arm up, or he had his army, but the war wasn't coming his way. Like, and he literally, that is like a king. If you have your own military, you're pretty much like a king. So why wasn't Abraham, mentioned in all these kings going to war with each other? If he had his own kingdom.
Definitely chief.
Stay set apart.
He stayed set apart. He wasn't in their politics. He didn't basically chime in on their affairs and whatever, basically he had to do, he kept it separate. And that's one thing that, we're looking at these two, which you're going to see, Lot doesn't understand how to keep that separate, how to stay separate, how to stay separated. To say you're not a part of these people, get out of their politics, get out of their, their cities, and stay out of their affairs. And we want to go down to, go ahead, I'm sorry. Verse 15.
All right, this is Genesis chapter 14, starting at verse 15. And he divided himself against them, he and his servants by night, and smote them and pursued them unto Shabbat, which is on the left hand of Damascus. And he brought back all the goods, and also brought again his brother Lot. Should that say brother's son? It says brother Lot. And his goods, and the women also, and the people. And the king of
right there. So you see, basically, Abraham went in there, won that battle. But that battle was basically for him, going to go get his nephew. Battle was not, had nothing to do with, with the politics that they were getting involved in. Even though, Sodom was getting his butt kicked. Abraham went there basically and won that battlefield. It's both 17 to 20.
All right. Go to Genesis 14 and 17. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Chalamet, and the king and of the kings that were with him at the valley of Shabbat, which is the king's den. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High. And he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth, and blessed be the Most High, which hath delivered thine enemies unto thine hand. And he gave him tithes of all. And the king of Sodom said unto Abram, Give me the persons, and take the goods for thyself. And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up mine hand unto the Lord, the Most High, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take from a thread even to a shoelachet, and that I will not take anything that is thine, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abram rich.
This is important. Go ahead, read that last verse.
Save only that which the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men which went with me, Aner, Ashkel, and Mamre, let them take their portion.
The reason why this is important is because what we're seeing here, we see here that not only have Abraham pretty much, saved Sodom, but also you look at what he did for Melchizedek. And also Abraham gave to Melchizedek, recognizing, Melchizedek for who he was, and gave a tenth. to
Attention, your battery is running low. Please plug in the power adapter now.
But the reason why I say this is important when he talks about the king of Sodom saying, the king of Sodom wanted to bless Abraham, and Abraham said, I've lifted up my hand to the Most High, and saying, I don't want basically to, take a dime from you because at least you say you made me rich. Now, I was looking at it and I was saying, basically I was pointing at TV because we were looking at the whole, I think something came on about the whole civil rights march and all that stuff. Now, one thing about that is a lot of those civil rights leaders made a whole lot of money during that time. They don't really talk about it. But it was literally a political scheme and a money grab. And what did they say? Estimated like about 800,000 was donated to those civil rights leaders back in the day. And that whole march was orchestrated and everything. And we don't know how to say no to money. And that's one of our biggest problems. We don't know how to say, like, our people, don't know how to turn money down. And even when you think about, what we were discussing earlier about, people might approach you and all this other stuff, or, you turn your brother in for $50,000 or whatever. I know things are hard for you. If we gave you $1 million, would you, speak on this? Yeah, go ahead.
I think too, this is an example of how, as a Hebrew Israelite man, we're supposed to keep a good name. So if Abram would have taken that money from him, what would his name be like?
Right.
So, I think that also ties into what you're talking about with the civil rights leaders taking money from this corrupt government. The world sees their name as something good, but those that know, they'll see something else.
It's just like today. You look at Black Lives Matter. They were really a solid group. They got their name plastered up on everybody, NBA, the NFL, and all this other stuff. And then you look at who they're taking money from.
Those speaks to what Moshe said. The servant said the borrower, the servant to the lender.
Right.
And so what ended up happening is you become compromised. And if you look at the whole civil rights movement, since you're using that as a parallel, you look at the whole civil rights movement. Every one of those so-called civil rights movement, civil rights leaders back then, even up to the last one that just died, John Lewis,
yeah.
He just died. But if you see any time we try to break away from our dependence on that, those people are the gatekeepers. They got to keep bringing us right back into that mode of being their servants, because their money is generating we know that the powers that be, they basically fund most of those civil rights movements or oligarchs. They're basically just oligarchs. They're just gatekeepers to make sure that Black people don't ever seek any real economic reform, economic independence, or anything. And what it was is that Abraham knew to say that if I took money from you, then I'm going to become subservient to you.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Because there's a certain amount of authority that a person gains over you when you take something from them.
Right.
Okay? And so Abraham knew, no, he paid tithes to the priest Melchizedek. Right. In other words, he gave that tenth to the Most High.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? He paid. Melchizedek represented that priestly order, that divine order.
Right.
I'm going to pay tithes to him because he was indicative of Mashiach,
right,
the Prince of Peace. You see what I'm saying? And so he basically said, no, I'm going to pay tithes to the master. I'm not going to take anything from you because I'll be beholden to flesh.
Right.
To where I'm going to pay tithes to the priest of eternity. So the Prince of Peace. Okay.
Yeah. And you know, and when you look at these civil rights leaders back then, a lot of them purport themselves as being ministers and all this. You got the Reverend Jesse Jackson, you got, you know, Dr. Martin Luther King, and it's like, well, this is our manual right here.
Right.
Not only is this just a, you know, a book for us to walk righteously, but this even tells us how to deal with politics. This is a war manual. Tells us how to go to war, tells us how to, you know, basically be political, how to be with our brothers, it guides us through every aspect of our lives.
Yeah.
And even beyond this, when you look at the book of, when you know, look at Proverbs, a lot of these lessons are from Abraham, what he's teaching his son. A lot of that comes from, you know, basically studying the way Abraham looked. I mean, the way Abraham walked. You know? And these are things that, you know, basically like, you know, we were talking about earlier. You know, there's certain ways that you move. There's certain, you know, I'm not supposed to take money from these people. You know, I don't want to owe no man. That's right. Owe no man because you become beholden to them. And it's hard when somebody gave you $10 million, it's hard to tell them no. Whoa. You know? So here, you know, here comes again, you know, where Abraham basically used his assets to bail Lot out. Use what he had, you know, from the Most High, what the Most High given him to bail him out. It's kind of like that, you know, we got some of us got these family members, some of us are that family member. Whenever people get in trouble, they always, hey man, you know, if you tighten you up with a couple hundred, or you know, you become that member. Some of us got that, you know, that rich uncle or granddad, like, hey, you know, I'm trying to tighten the bill right now. So again, you know, if you are an asset, you will be bailing people out. You will be giving money instead of taking money. Yeah. So again, we have an asset Abraham, and we got Lot being bailed out. Again, this is all due to mindset. So nothing, you know, this is all mind. This all starts in the mind. So we're going to go down to Genesis chapter 18. And this is where, you know, I say, look, the warning comes before the destruction. Again. And again, you would think after this, Lot would have kind of like, you know what, let me get back to mom. Let me just, you know, whatever he's going on is better than what I got going on right now. Sorry. No. That doesn't happen, unfortunately. So we're going to start at Genesis chapter 18, starting at 19, going down to 24. 19 to 24.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 18, starting at verse 19. For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord, to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken of him. And the Lord said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come unto me, and if not, I will know.
Okay, so just to give you a little background of what's going on, you know, after all of that has happened, you know, some time has gone by. Promises were made to Sarah, you know, to bear Abraham's son. And again, you know, Lot is, you know, just time has gone by. So Abraham, you know, meets these two angels, and they were set on a path of destruction. You know, but first, who did they go to? It's Abraham. And Abraham, you know, basically took them in and, you know, and supped with them. And this is where we are right now. Just want to, you know, kind of kind of fact, catch us up. Go ahead.
Genesis chapter 18, verse 22. And the men turned their faces from thence and went towards Sodom. But Abraham stood yet before the Lord. And Abraham drew near and said, Wilt thou also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Peradventure, there be 50 righteous within the city. Wilt thou also destroy, and not spare the place for the 50 righteous that are therein?
So right here we see where the word is given out. We're going to destroy, going to destroy the city. And still, Abraham's thinking about his nephew. Now, one thing I did want to say about the war that Abraham went to, a lot of our people, like every war that America has been in, our people have been in, our people have fought. And for us to have made it here, that means somebody's been praying for us. Somebody back then, maybe a couple of generations past, have been praying for this generation. Just like we pray for each other, and we pray for those that are still out there. And we're to continue to pray for those that are still out there. Because a lot of them don't know what's about to come upon them. But the Most High sends his word to who? His people first. So he stops with us first, so we know the destruction that's about to come. It's going to come upon them swiftly, but we know. And it's our duty to pray for our brothers. We still got relatives out there that, they don't know what they're part of. They, basically feeding into, this mass hysteria that's going on. Wear your mask. If you see somebody without one, call the feds on them or whatever. So a lot of our people are still out here. A lot of our people are still having to deal with authority. A lot of our people are still basically needing our prayers because a lot of them are not going to make it, but the ones that we pray for, some of them will be spared. And this is what we're seeing here with Abraham again. Using his assets, calling in that favor. This is what this is, calling in that favor. And hey, Most High, are you going to destroy everybody that's in that city? Or, we find 50, can they get out? Kind of like us, hoping that, whatever's befallen upon this nation, that some of our people make it out. And they come to the truth, basically just make it through this stuff. It's like the Most High is always left a remnant. So, I'll go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, one thing interesting, we should really look at, observe that instantly. Did Abraham know that these people were Sodomites? I mean, that was Sodom. Saddam comes from, is a derivative of Sodomite, but we know that Sodomites kind of got connected synonymously with homosexuality. Came because of the practice of Sodom.
Right.
So it's more than likely Abraham was like, I don't want nothing from you.
Yeah.
I'm here for my nephew.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not here for any other reason. So I'm not going to take nothing because he more than likely understood what they were doing.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so, that being said, again, like you said, Abraham, the angels, the angels come into Abraham's tent with the intention of interceding for Lot, for Noah.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then we could and then that's where it's beneficial for us that are following the ways of the Most High, stand outside so we can pull those within those dark places out of that. You see what I mean? And not become a part of it.
I think that speaks volumes on truly understanding what it means to prepare a place. You know what I'm saying? Because like us as Israelites, right? We're speaking within telling other people to get out, rather than being out speaking with them and showing them how to do it. Okay. I think that's a big problem with a lot of the people as Israelites we bring in, and we don't have a place prepared because we're not looking at the scripture and really what it's trying to convey to us.
Right. Yeah.
And we're supposed to be in the image and likeness of Elohim, and that means to take on his mindset and his characteristics. So if he prepared a place for us, why should we be preparing a place for others? And I get it, the whole thing, the scripture should be our guide, and it really should in all aspects. Even how we deal with in the world. We get on these different support systems of the government. We taking jobs, that's cool, but we're not even having a plan to get out ourselves. Rather than really like we speak about unity, we speak about wrong food, we speak about all these things, but yet we're doing it in a way that still keeps us attached to our enemy.
That's right. When we look at the whole Black Lives Matter thing, one thing that's beautiful is that there's a even those among us that's not probably as in tune to the walk of who they are, there's an awareness that there's an agenda there that they're trying to marry us to that has very little nothing to do with us as God's people. Right. You know what I mean? And it's important that we realize that even in this whole thing that's going on, there's an awareness. There's like almost as if there's an awareness that's happening with our people. Not to fall for these things. You see what I'm saying? Okay.
Because one thing about it is Abraham, to answer your question, I mean, Abraham was a businessman, by all means. And, he knew exactly what was going on with Sodom and going on with Gomorrah and all the wickedness, because I'm pretty sure he's probably dealt with somebody who was either bringing goods into Sodom, like, hey, I need some, they wicked down there, but like, he gets the reports, and that's just like us nowadays. We know what's going on in Vegas. Like, it's just a whole bunch of, it's a whole bunch of stuff, and what goes on in downtown Atlanta, and just a whole bunch of, but you're right, Maurice. It's just like the word is showing us basically, believing in him. Like some of us don't believe that the Most High could provide for us like that. We get a land, it's like, well, how am I going to make this happen? And when you see what happened to Abraham, everywhere he went, he got blessed. From the beginning, walking through Egypt, just walking, he left with substance. He didn't work for it, he didn't hustle it, he didn't cheat nobody out of it, but he got it.
On faith.
On faith.
And one thing I realized is you see a pattern throughout the scripture. God was always a separate. He always wanted us separate from other people. Even when in Leviticus, when he took the children of Israel out of Egypt, he said, I'm Yahweh thy Elohim, who has separated you from other people. And that's what he's always done.
To land me back on what you said, I think God doesn't want us to be separate but equal. He wants us to be separate and just. Right. You know what I mean? He wants to be separate and just. He wants us to be fair and just to strangers based on Torah. But he doesn't want us to be Echad with him. And if they're going to be Echad with us, they have to be as one as if they were us. And therefore, not saying that you get some spiritual Israelite people, because it clearly says we treat them as if they were one. That is whole one. But we see stipulations, even for the stranger, that we couldn't even if we took Hebrew servants. You couldn't treat a Hebrew, a homeborn Hebrew Israelite, as the same way you would treat a Hebrew. There were certain stipulations in which even the Hebrew could approach. And this is where most people would read one scripture where you hear that somehow we got this Christian notion. But But if you're going to keep anything pure, you have to keep it from getting contaminated by any foreign bodies or influence. You see what I mean? But so we're to be separate but just.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think that's Abraham, our father, basically represented that, because we know he had dealings with other nations. Okay? He had transaction with other nations. But we see clearly there wasn't no transaction with Sodomites.
Right.
And you know what I mean?
Exactly.
He made that clear.
Like in the case of, I forgot there's a leading nation that where they was exchanging goods and they both been pleased to each other. Mm-hmm. And that was off the rip because they respected our God.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that's definitely real as far as being separatist but just. Right. Because I think the whole, again, going back to the whole message is, the point was to cause orders to serve the Elohim.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
That's right.
I was gonna say too. Notice how there's always a intercessor for the righteous and unrighteous. You notice how it says he's interceding for if there's at least 50 or 40 or 30 or down to 10 righteous people left in the city. Mm-hmm. You can see the same thing in when Moses got the Israelites out of Egypt, and then when he came back down from the mountain, they made a golden calf. Right. The Most High was going to destroy all of it, but Moses interceded. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of intercession that goes on throughout the scripture, leading all the way up to the ultimate one, where when Yehoshua was nailed to the tree, he said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do."
That's why we say, and that's why I say we must be separate and just, because just has everything. Just is synonymous with righteous, and so Yah intentionally don't put emotion on it. Mm-hmm. Not men moved by feeling, but men who are compelled to justice. What's equitable in this situation? What's fair? And that's what Moses was. He was a just man. David was a just man. You know what I mean? So these were men who allowed Torah to make decisions on Yah's word. Right. Okay?
Right. So this is the part where I say basically when you have too many liabilities, what happens? This is when basically it's time to pay the piper. And this is basically when it's time to basically show that everything that you've been living, not only has it affected your children, or not only has it affected you, but it's affected your mate, the person that you decide to be with. It's affected your children and their mentality and where, basically they grow up. And this is pretty much just all coming to a head. As far as, again, between assets and liabilities. And, when we think about liabilities, I mean, it all comes down to mindset. It all comes down basically to a mindset. So we're going to start at chapter 19. We'll try to go through this and just, break everything down, but we're going chapter 19, verse 1 through 3.
All right, let's go to Genesis, chapter 19, starting at verse 1. And there came two angels to Sodom at evening, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. And Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, Behold now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and ye shall rise up early, and go on your ways. And they said, Nay, but we will abide in the street all night. And he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned in unto him, and entered into his house. And he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat.
So when we look at our people, like a lot of them are not lost. Like Lot, again, he grew up around his uncle. He's pretty much like his uncle's son. Not to say that in a perverted way, but he's pretty much like his son. And it's somehow Lot recognized that these men were angels. And how when Abraham, when he first met these people, these men, he recognized them as being angels. So Lot recognized them as being angels. So a lot of us, and maybe this might be a stretch. Y'all can tell me if this is a stretch, but you look at like what happened to Nick Cannon, what happened to him, basically talking about how blacks in America are the real Jews, and what happened. We got a lot of our brothers and sisters out there that are starting to really come around, starting to wake up, and you'll run into people here and then talking about, we are those people that are the Bible. So a lot of them are kind of waiting for something to go down for them to actually recognize what this thing really is or what's about to happen. But and here you see where Lot now is actually in the city. So he went from having this little cut outside of the city to where now he's inside the city. So he was outside of Sodom and Gomorrah. So now he got him a little condo or a little hut or somewhere inside the city of Sodom.
He got the condo.
Got him a condo. Yeah. He went from a big house, then he downsized outside of Sodom. Now he downsized again. Now he's like in a house inside of the city of Sodom. So he just can't move out of Sodom. Just can't move away. So let's go to verse 4 through 8.
The book of Genesis, chapter 19, starting at verse 4. But before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, all the people from every quarter.
Okay, so somehow word got out. These fair-looking men, which were angels, went to Lot's house. So now everybody from every quarter was like, wait a minute, it's fresh fish out here. So, okay, that's odd. That's weird. And they're not going there to throw him like a welcome, like, hey, welcome to the neighborhood. You want to show you around, like, that's not this kind of party here.
The choice is yours.
Yeah, basically. We're not at that point yet. Don't worry about the but they didn't have text message. So I don't know how the word got out to all four quarters. They must have had like some petite sprinter just running around telling everybody. So I don't know.
We don't want your daughters.
Yeah.
No more.
Exactly. So again, rent is due, Lot. So
Wow.
All right, verse 5.
All right. Book of Genesis, chapter 19, starting at verse 5. And they called unto Lot and said unto him, Where are the men which came into thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. Okay,
so again, this wasn't like, hey, you got some neighbors in town. We want to get to know them. Like, this is secret. We want to get to know them.
They're not coming over.
It's not like, no, we want to introduce ourselves. Like we're the residents of Sodom. We just, thank you, welcome to your neighborhood. But I'm kind of wondering why Lot didn't get that kind of invite or, that kind of welcome. Maybe they know who his uncle is, so maybe they just left him alone. I don't know. All right, let's go to verse 6.
Let's make sure that let's give the Hebrew to this.
Okay.
The Yada. It says to discriminate, distinguish, to know, experience, to recognize, admit, acknowledge, confess, to know, be acquainted with, to know a person carnally. To know a person carnally. Let's just make sure we're clearing this up. What are you talking about?
Okay, so I physically know you.
Because we see how we'll see how Lot he responds.
Right.
Yeah, which is
This was
very.
what he offered up.
Yeah, that's crazy. Or he tried to offer up.
Right.
Right.
All right. Verse 6.
Yeah, verse 6 now.
All right. Verse 6. And Lot went out at the door unto them, and shut the door after him, and said, I pray you, brethren.
Hold on, right there.
Wait, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Hold on, right there.
He's accepting it.
This right here goes over a lot of people's heads, and they just, go right by it. He said, I pray you, brother. He called them his brothers.
Right.
So basically, it's like, now we can say this,
That's
right?
like at least a third of the black community side with the Sodomites.
Like,
Facts.
Right.
Barack Obama.
Or saying you now a product of your environment.
Right. Your problem is our problem.
Yeah. So hey, brothers, like what's going on? Like basically, like we're the same people now.
Right.
I think
We're
it's,
not set apart. Go ahead.
I think it's fair to say that Lot is a lukewarm.
Lot, yeah, Lot got some more problems.
Lot is
Double
Lot is an integrationist.
Yeah.
Bingo.
He accepted whatever he
Bingo.
He's an integration.
It's the integration.
You know what I'm saying?
That's the only way we can put it. Keep fully integrated with the system of Sodom.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, I'll start back over at verse 7. And said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold now, I have 2 daughters, which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do ye to them as is good in your eyes.
They don't want nothing to do with it.
Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof.
Okay, so now here's the stretch. This is kind of where, again, if we're talking about allegories, and we're talking about, for lack of a better word, like a metaphor, right? If we were, let's just say these men, these men were the authority at that time. These men were the authority. Let's just say these men are a coronavirus. Let's just say they're not men, they're a coronavirus, they're a Trump. They're an authority, they're a law, they're this, they're that. And what are you willing to give up to feel safe? Lot's life was not in trouble. Those angels were not in trouble either.
That's a fact.
They came there to destroy the city. They didn't come there to what you giving your daughters up for? I came here to save y'all. The angels didn't send them out there. Lot didn't give these angels time to respond to this stuff.
I think that shows his lack of faith in the Most High.
That's the integration.
It's like us, right? We hear all this negative stuff on the news. Wear your mask, or you're gonna get sick, or and I'm to each his own out there. I'm not even gonna go down that rabbit hole with anybody. That's what you feel is what you feel. But and again, if we're looking at metaphors, what is Lot's daughters? What are you willing to give up to feel safe that you really don't have to give up? If we were to say his daughters were like rights, what are you giving up? If we were to say his daughters were like a piece of himself, or because your daughters are supposed to be precious, and I have daughters. I think if something like that was to happen, and my daughters had to be taken ravishly, the last vision I want them to see is their daddy fighting for their life. Let them see me die doing that. At least they know that I went out there and died. But again, you got a father that's willing to give up his daughters for some men that were under no threat of any danger whatsoever. Scripture doesn't say anywhere where these angels were hiding under a table here for their life because of these sodomites outside. Like, I don't know why he out there yapping with them. They might be the first ones to go. Yeah, these men gonna be the first ones to go. So we look at things like when we look at these times, like what are we willing to give up that we really don't have to give up? And because we just scared. This is what being a liability is. Abraham dealt with this once. He dealt with it and came out, being faithful. Lot always went based on what he saw. He was fully integrated into the system, and it's like we talk to our people now. That's all they want to talk about is this disease that's going around, killing a couple people or killing some people that they know somebody that potentially may have died from this. So all this fear is going on. So what do these men represent that's coming to this door is fear. What are you willing to basically just fork over to feel safe or feel like you're really protecting something? I just want whatever I got to feel protected, but I'm willing to lose a part of myself to feel that comfort. Verse 9.
All right, this is
Back to them bride prices. He just wanted to give them
Right.
It's too much. They never say no, man. But listen, sodomites like that. It's don't know what he got. Free. We got Jacob for 7 years. He just 14. You know what I'm saying?
damn wow.
It's a no. Other action.
He's sitting every day.
Keep your female.
Yeah.
Oh, Damon.
So this is the part that I call being proactive, having assets, as opposed to being reactive. When you're proactive like Abraham, you're prepared. Constantly prepared. Like Moray, has been telling us, you have food stored, things like, for when these days come. He was prepared because he was the first one to receive the message. Lot basically is reacting to this because he couldn't see what he was in. He couldn't see what he was surrounded by. So now he's reacting to all this stuff, all this chaos, instead of being prepared.
And I guarantee I guarantee Lot didn't just walk around one day and it just happened. I'm sure he done walked around and seen them kissing him.
No, I'm pretty I'm sure.
He probably seen him tucked away in the corner.
I think they were having public origin.
Yeah, they was having public origin.
I'm sure.
Facts. Yeah.
I'm sure this isn't the first time Lot seen these men rape another man.
No.
Because when those angels showed up, he's like, "Nah, y'all don't want to walk out here at night. No, stay here and leave in the morning."
Right.
It's kind
So
of.
he knew what was up.
Yeah, he knew
Come on
he
in, man.
got down.
Yeah. They said they about to come out.
I know, just chill here tonight. Just not want to tell them like, "Yeah, it's bad here." Some of us live in bad neighborhoods. Like, it is what it is. Somebody got shot the other day. Like, nah,
Yeah. They said bring them outside so we can know them.
Out of their
Oh,
whole
we
mind.
get salty in here.
They out of their whole mind.
But
And they getting that boat again.
Yeah.
exactly.
That's the thing. They getting that boat again.
That's what Sarah's talking about. Like, they jump at people nowadays and when they knock them out, they
Man, whoa.
Yeah.
I was talking about
No, bro.
Yeah.
they knocked out.
That's a whole nother story. Y'all figure it out. You're right. And yeah. Well, wake up. Wake up on the way. What happened? You've been violated.
It's getting to that point.
Yeah, man.
I mean, think about who's out here now, like rioting and jumping people and you know what I'm saying. Like, think about who those people are. We think this stuff is ancient. Living it right now. So this is where I call being proactive versus reactive. So we're gonna read 9 to 14.
All right, this is the book of Genesis, chapter 19, starting at verse 9. And they said, stand back. And they said again, this one fellow came in to sojourn, and he will needs be a judge. Now will he deal worse with thee than with them? And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door.
Now we can either do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way.
The choice is yours.
Choice is yours.
Choice is yours.
Choice is yours. Friend. I mean, Lot.
All right, verse 10.
Who are you to judge us? I mean, hold on. Read that again. I think we should pass that up.
Read it again.
Because this is the response most of us get nowadays when we talk about it.
Okay. Verse 9. And they said, stand back. And they said again, this one fellow came in to sojourn, and he will needs be a judge. Now will we deal worse with thee than with him? And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and they came near to break the door. But the men put forth their hand and pulled Lot into the house to them, and shut to the door.
So here it is. Again, he saved Lot. Lot, you was about to get your butt kicked. And you sitting there, when you about to send out your daughter, you're about to get your butt kicked.
Verse 11. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they were wearied themselves to find the door.
So here it is. These guys are so caught up in their wickedness, they still search. They blind. They got smoked with blindness. And they're blind and they're still searching for the door. And this is how wicked these men are. Like, and basically, you can know you losing a fight and you just still going.
Turned over to their left.
Just all the way turned over. Go ahead.
Verse 12. And the men said unto Lot, hast thou here any besides, son-in-law, and thy sons and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place. For we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxing great before the face of the Lord. And the Lord hath sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spake unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But he hath seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-law.
Here goes that conspiracy theorist.
That's one good.
What happened? Oh, she doesn't.
Yeah. So here. All right.
Okay.
So here it is. You see where. Yeah, because here it is, like
Shema, y'all, Shema.
so So here it is. We see where, you know, basically because Lot dwelt amongst these people and considered, and basically was considered to be a part of them. Nobody wanted to believe him. You know, no one, just like, you know, how some of us might be crying, you know, crying out saying, hey, these things are about to go down, like, and people are looking at you like you crazy. Like, man, you don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
I think a good example of that is Noah. I think Noah warned everybody for like over 100 years that there was a flood coming, and they all thought he was a crazy conspiracy theorist.
So go to 15 to 22. This is what I call Lot still not getting it. So even though he saw what happened to him, and you know at this point it's time to move, bro. It's time to get out the city because the men there are literally too wicked. And you know these are angels that you're holding up in your house. Lot still just doesn't get it because it's his mindset. So go ahead, 15 to 22.
All right. This is Genesis chapter 19, starting verse 15. And when the morning arose, then the angels hastened Lot, saying, Arise, take thy wife and thy 2 daughters, which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the cities. And while he lingered,
okay, right there. While he lingered, he thought basically again, like we think we got all the time in the world. Like Lot, like your time is due. Like all this stuff is coming to a head right now. And he still just doesn't get it. He still is like, you know, well, I know you might mess up some of these men in here, but I don't think you guys are gonna destroy the whole city. So he still doesn't get it. There's something about him that just still doesn't get it. So go ahead, 16.
verse 16. And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his 2 daughters, the Lord being merciful unto him, and they brought him forth and set him without the city.
So the Most High still, like even in us, like lingering and, you know, some of our bad habits, still being merciful. You don't know when that mercy might run out. But still, while there's time, like there's a time limit. Basically, that clock is ticking on Sodom and Gomorrah.
Verse 17. And it came to pass, when they had brought them forth abroad, that he said, Escape for thy life. Look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. And Lot said unto them, Oh, not so, my lord.
Again, Lot just not getting it. This is an angel. You said this was an angel, right, Lot? So if he told you to go somewhere, why not just trust him when he tells you to go somewhere? Instead of, again, like looking and saying, well, you know, I don't think we can dwell there. I don't think that place is nice. I don't think we'll be comfortable there if we go there. Even though we know you're going to destroy this place, but you're kind of taking us out like, you know, can we not go to, you know, can we basically go to, you know, Buckhead and not Bankhead? You know, can we, yeah, as far as where you're going to go, where your escape is going to go, but apparently the Most High knows what's best for you.
Right.
Go ahead.
Verse 19. Behold, now, thy servant hath found grace in thy sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy, which thou hast shown unto me in saving my life. And I could not escape to the mountain, lest some evil take me when I die.
Okay, so who basically is making all this stuff up? The angel or Lot?
Lot.
Go ahead.
Verse 20. Behold now, this city is near to flee unto, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape thither. Is it not a little one? And my soul shall live.
So let me escape to something that's a little more pleasant. Let me dictate the terms of, it's not you dictating the terms of your surrender. You're dictating the terms of your escape. You know, let's find a certain type of land that's going to make it, you know, it's a small city. I can go there. get a little job or whatever. Like, like I can still live my normal like life or whatever, because we really don't see the danger that we're in sometimes, and we're still not walking by faith. Go ahead.
Verse 21. And he said unto him, See, I have accepted thee concerning this thing also, that I will not overthrow this city for which thou hast spoken. Hast thee escaped thither, for I cannot do anything till thou be come thither. Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar.
So wow. So I can't do anything to come out. I can't destroy the city because someone has made a partition for your life. I'm not saying that basically we're going to have all the time in the world. You're saying I can't do anything until you've gotten out of this place. Can't destroy it, but we are going to destroy it. So go ahead, 23 to 26.
Verse 23. The sun was risen upon the earth when Lot entered into Zoar. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt.
Mm. So what are we seeing here when it comes to liabilities, like we were saying earlier, right? Now, what's the difference between Abraham's wife, Sarah, and Lot's wife? One was blessed at her old age. One turned into a pillar of salt. And this is all through guidance, because these women are watching these men, watching where they move. These women are moving where these men are moving. So Sarah was blessed. This woman had, basically was Lot really guiding her into all righteousness. Because what was she looking back for? What was she looking back at? Who was she?
So her, at that point, the world.
Yeah, at that point, that city was her world. Her world. What am I leaving behind?
She gave the comforts of the world.
Yeah.
And a man established that mentality.
Right. And there was a liability mentality. And Sarah, the moment, the Most High spoke to Abraham, she went with him. She left her comfort zone to be with her man. Lot wanted comfort. So she was okay with dwelling in the city, probably turning up, partying, and all this other stuff. So to her, it was like leaving that city is like, I'm leaving a piece of me. Okay, well, you can stay back there. Because when we're to be brought out, Abraham willingly had to go. Lot was forced out. And he had to run for his life to be out. So those, again, no one gets out of this thing without sacrificing something. So again, remember Lot's wife. Let's go down to verse 30. We want to go to 30 and 38. That's going to be it for this chapter and for this lesson.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 19, starting at verse 30. And Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountain, and his two daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar. And he dwelt in a cave, he and his two daughters.
Now, this is where he wanted to go. This is where Lot wanted to go, and they were like, okay, fine. We'll let you go there. You and your daughters, because your wife turned into a pillar of salt. So now it's just you and your daughters that were saved. Right?
Verse 31. And the firstborn said unto the younger, Our father is old.
So she got a bright idea.
And there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth.
She got a real bright idea. Now, where did she get this bright idea from? Because not only were they raping men, they were giving into all the stuff that the word of the Most High told us not to get into. Incest, So the herd was like, our world is destroyed. So then in their perverted way of thinking was like, well, our father still needs a seed. So she came up with a bright idea.
All right, verse 32. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose.
Okay, so is this a liability?
Right.
Yeah, they spiking stuff.
They got the great dandelion.
So is this a liability, or is this really an asset? Is this an asset or a liability at this point? Exactly. And when you think about it, it all came full circle. You think about like basically where Lot being raised under the tutorship of Abraham, how did he get to this point? And sometimes we don't change our mindsets. It's like you can only go so far down that road to where all this stuff is gonna meet you. And he literally got drunk and had sex with his daughters and basically got them pregnant. That's just a list of bad decisions, I think. How worse can your life get? Go ahead.
Verse 34. All right, verse 34. And it came to pass on the morrow that the firstborn said unto the younger, Behold, I lay yesternight with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also.
Your turn.
And go thou in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night also. And the younger one arose and lay with him. And he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father. And the firstborn bare a son, and called his name Moab.
This is where the Moabites came from. And basically Moab, the name stands for of his father. So this is literally, his name. Like, why would you want a name like that? Like, everybody know, like, look, man, you're your daughter's, like your father. Like, how do you explain that? And maybe that's probably why they had a chip on his shoulder. I don't know. Like the laughing stock of the nation right now. Go ahead.
The same is the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger, she also bare a son, and called his name Ben-Ami. The same is the father of the children of Ammon unto this day.
And Ben-Ami.
Take that name. That always got by me, but why would you take that name?
When I first did that podcast, first thing I said,
Ben-Ami.
oh, that name, do that.
And what does that mean? Son of my people.
Yeah.
Like, when you say son of my people, what does that really mean? Son of my people. Like literally, son of my people.
And my people, my pops.
Right. Wow. So, and basically in conclusion, what we see here again, everything comes back to mindset. Everything that we do just comes back to the way we look at life, the way we look at, how the Most High is moving in our lives and the decisions we make. These are important decisions. And we're saying like our life again is an allegory. And who's writing this? Who's guiding our lives? Who do we want guiding our footsteps? Because we can not only just be a liability to ourselves and our own progression, but as you can see, Lot was a liability to his whole lineage. And the only thing this lineage did, again, going full circle with the herds, with Abraham's herdsmen and Lot's herdsmen. Going full circle to now these nations are constantly fighting with each other. Lot's seed and Abraham's seed constantly at war with each other. All this stuff comes full circle. So that's the word. I just want to thank y'all for being patient. I want to thank the Most High for giving me the courage to get up here and speak.
Yeah. It's hard as you go.
Anybody got any questions or comments? The elders awesome lesson.
Great lesson.
Yeah.
Great lesson.
Loved it.
Great lesson.
Praise the Most High.
Nice lesson.
Go ahead.
Hopefully you get another one.
My next one's gonna be real short. It's gonna be, keep the commandments and live.
I think it's
Amen.
a good method of how to bring this lesson out. You know, sometimes we really don't take the time to digest the stories and let them not just be stories, but let it be a real life that we can relate to. Especially when we put in that perspective of Sodom and Gomorrah, like to get to the characteristics of the lifestyle they had, and just kind of compare it to America. I mean, it looks the one and the same. Really.
Yeah.
Then you look at our people who dwell in Sodom and Gomorrah versus those who live set apart, physically outside of Sodom and Gomorrah and mentally. You see the life that they live, and the penalty for those who still want to be in the midst of Babylon or Sodom and Gomorrah. Right. He even tell you in the scripture. He said those who are partakers. He said they judgment gonna be worse than what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah. So you look at what happened. You come on fire and brimstone. Like you go over there right now, you still smell and see the brimstone going in that area where Sodom and Gomorrah was at. So we're talking about centuries and centuries ago, and you still smell it.
That's so.
Yeah, so
It's like that's there. Like they say, it's like it looks like sand, but that's literally like
it's the soul. You could touch anything and smell it. So just to imagine like putting that in the mindset of us. Believe it or not, this is something me and you was kind of hitting over this week. Like it had to do with something else, but just understanding like it's certain things we kind of pick and choose what we want to take from America. Yeah, he was telling us there's no compromise in being set apart.
right.
It's either you fully set apart or you're part of the system.
That's right.
And even as Israelite, you can still see. And you can take it physically and spiritually. I'll take it both. You know that literally that we're supposed to separate from Sodom and Gomorrah, spiritual Sodom and Gomorrah, Babylon, and be a partaker for a sin. And we constantly talking about that this country is going to be destroyed, but then we look at these stories and say, can we relate it to our lives today?
Right.
And half of us choose not to look at it like that, but it really is what it is.
Right.
And so then on the other side also you see the life you can live when you don't have a mentor or guidance or father figure or elder.
Mm-hmm.
Versus when you want to do your own thing and make your own decisions. This is most likely the result of it. You're going to have a harder life than an easier life when you don't have anybody who's been through it already to guide you with you. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely appreciate the lesson. Like it really make you just kind of like put it in perspective on our own lives and say, man, if I'm these people, if I come from these people, am I any different than those who sinned before me?
Right.
Or made mistakes before me?
Right.
Hallelujah.
Look at his life. I mean, he was 75 when he came out. So
Right.
people, in these days and times, they got a saying, well, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's like, it's time to come out. It's time to come out. Take advantage of it when you get called out. And that's what his life was. He just took advantage of the opportunity to serve the Most High.
Children, ain't me moving around. Anybody else got any comments, questions?
Yeah, I like the most part of the lesson was defining the names of the kings. I think that really put in perspective of how evil, or it kind of made see how evil they really are. You know what I'm saying? You said if it's Sodom, his name was
Son of evil.
son of evil, like you name for your destiny and purpose, a name like that. But and also you can see with the different types of men, Abraham and Lot was too. Abraham was a patient man, he's diligent, he did his works, and he listened, and he was obedient. Lot just wanted to do his own thing. And he had guidance, but he neglected it. He didn't want to take care of it. He took it for granted. So that's something you do see.
You said something that made, he took it for granted.
Yeah.
He was literally like under Abraham's tutorship. Like, who in here wouldn't want to be in Lot's position earlier on in life? To be under Abraham, to see how he moved and see how he operated, and he took it for granted.
It was a great lesson.
If we're still alive.
Yeah. Make sure we get these comments or questions. Anybody else?
I liked it. I think it was great how you said what you said when it came knocking at Lot's door. Like, if they come beating down at our door, like, what are we willing to compromise? What parts or even little parts of our lifestyle are we willing to give up out of fear? So that put a lot into perspective for me and whatever and whatnot. Like, you know what I mean? So I like that. It's a real slow process of compromising the Most High and then, turning over to your sin. It's a slow process of doing that. So you shouldn't compromise not a little part of the law for fear. So I like that you said that.
And to go where she's saying, what I got out of that particular incident, that I seen it from a little different perspective of whether it was fear that Lot was dealing with, because they weren't threatening him, his life. He was threatening the angels. So was it more he was under societal pressure to get along? You know what I mean? To get along with these people that he been sojourning with. Right. You know what I mean? That pressure, that peer pressure that we feel to compromise our stance on righteousness or whatever. And a lot of us find ourselves compromising when we're dealing with, because that was a social norm. Right. You got to think about it. That was a social norm. Because you got to think most of these nations was doing that. Like, we're back to where we were. This is global. Right. The only thing that kind of kept this in check is that the Gentiles embraced biblical doctrine. Right. There was nothing before this that stopped the proliferation of sodomy. You know what I mean? Right. There's nothing in text recorded anywhere outside of the corpus of the scripture. You see what I mean? So the Gentile age was actually the prohibition of those activities came by way of Gentile Christianity. Right. And as they begin to deviate from that, we begin to see the rise of the old idols and their practices and their ceremonies and their customs. Okay. And homosexuality is actually integrated in those things. And so I think it was more peer pressure that made him compromise, And yes, you could say it was fear, but fear of what? Fear of being unpopular, fear of being... Because he called them brothers. So it was that pressure to get along and not want to seem different or complicated. And, every time you turn around, you know what I mean? Now imagine Abraham still he stayed outside of that, out of that equation or out of that influence. So he wasn't under that influence. Right. But unfortunately, with us being a part of we're in this integration, we have that peer pressure to be constantly politically correct. Exactly. You know what I mean? Wherever the consensus is, whatever it is, that's wherever it's moving, that's what you're supposed to do. Right. And then, but when persecution comes, you see what I'm saying? Or you're on the side of righteousness, but your stance is unpopular. Right. What are you going to do? Right. You know what I mean? What are you willing to say to daughters? What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to say? What are you willing to do? What are you willing to give up? You know what I mean? And then I think another good point that you brought out that I never really paid attention to is that if Lot would have went where the angels told him, maybe his daughters would have never saw that he was the only man. Right. He went to this cave. If he would have went where the angels told him to go, more than likely, it would have been a city where there was other men, and that wouldn't even happen. Right. But that goes again with leaning to our own understanding. Right. You know what I mean? And then out of that leaning to your own understanding can lead to that type of thing happening. That type of perversion happening.
You can see where, basically he just allowed the city to raise his daughters.
Mm-hmm.
Just let them run wild. I mean, for them to even have that kind of that mindset, because that was, of course, made fun and said, well, they had a bright idea, but that's what was going on.
But when we look at culturally back then, we know that culturally, as we talk often about here, is that the proliferation of the seed of man, that was ingrained in them. You know what I mean? To regenerate, to keep the man's seed line going. Right. And that, no matter the perverse action that was taken, we know that was the driving force with the women. You know what I mean? That makes sure that man continue his genealogy.
Cash had something.
I forgot really, but dang, I forgot. No, because then Elder went and interrupted me.
Oh my bad.
No, I think I was going to say something along the lines of, like, when she was looking back at the city, it just, for me, I know for me, like, if I was the one that never angered me, like, for her to be looking back at something and, like, basically wanting to be there and go back, and you're taking her about a destruction. And it just makes me think and wonder, like, how many of us are going to be doing that when it's time to go and leave Babylon? How many of us are so entangled in Babylon to the point where it's entangled in Babylon to the point where
entanglement.
We're entangled with Babylon.
To the point where we're gonna be like just like not wanting to leave.
Yeah. You see that right now? It's true.
Or even better yet,
but you got a lot of people who are like, forget Babylon, blah blah blah, but once it's time to leave, we'll really see,
See, this is the kicker though. Think about where Lot was in that moment. He's where he was is where we at now. Like we know by the book that judgment coming though we see the signs. He had direct angels come to him and tell him what time it is, and he still was hesitant.
He's still learning.
I've seen some on Facebook talking about people who've been prophesying about the destruction of Babylon, still don't want to leave.
Still in Babylon.
And then when we leave Babylon, there's going to be some that want to go back and start complaining like they did when they left Egypt.
It's just
crab cakes.
How we can say like
crab cakes.
How we can look at like a lot of these so-called like I would call them pro-blacks. Like, a lot of them. It's not that they don't want to be separate. They just want what the white man got. And they'll talk all that stuff, but literally they just want what this man has. They want to be separated from him because when you think about all the stuff that's been talked about since the 60s, like how many decades have literally passed, and it's like you got all these cities outside of like these major cities. Mm-hmm. And you feel like we can't thrive in them because when I was a truck driver, I was driving through like these little small cities and whatever economy they had going on, it was working for them. Mm-hmm. So these small groups of people can like get outside of these major cities and do their own thing. And what was our thing? Because at some point either we felt like we need these people to survive, or we really don't want to be separate because what was familiar with.
All right, y'all. So with that, we say Shabbat Shalom.
What you said, Sister Cat?
No,
No, go ahead, finish.
I'm just saying.